Hello and welcome to the Scoutcast. My name is Joe.
My name is Andy.
And my name is Kylie.
Welcome back to me and Andy after a week's break, and welcome Kylie making her Scoutcast debut. Kylie, how are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you.
Excellent.
Excited to be on. Yep.
Tell the Scoutcast viewers and listeners a bit about yourself. I understand you also are a massive content creator as well, just like me and Andy.
Massive. Sounds so impressive.
Yeah.
So I'm on a podcast myself, Three Amigos.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing that for, I think we're in our 5th season now. I joined in about halfway through that season when I was pretty new to fantasy football at the time. But yeah, we've been going strong. It's really good. And yeah, in terms of about me, obviously have the Australian accent.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a bit of a niche, I think. I don't think there's a lot of female Australian podcasters in the community. But yeah, I'm in Ireland about 7 years now, and basically came over a complete novice to football and turned into a monster quite quickly after arriving.
The addiction has caught hold.
It did. Yeah, it did. Sucked me in.
Excellent stuff. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at our teams in a bit, and I'll ask Andy to say what's coming up in the show. Eagle-eyed viewers will notice that we've got our usual customary arrows, which obviously we love having, and scores. Now they will also notice that Andy has got a green arrow, and I managed on this slide to give him a green arrow. Both myself and Az on the up and coming slides have accidentally given him a red arrow. We saw his rank and we thought that's got to be a red arrow, surely.
Yeah, he must have had a red arrow down there.
But we can't believe that that's a green arrow, but apparently it was. So
yes, it was. Yeah, and I'm really, really proud of it actually. So thank you for putting it on.
So what I might do, if we're on the slide for long enough and I'm not talking, I might attempt to add, with the power of my excellent skills with technology, add a green arrow in and cover up that red arrow. So Andy has a green arrow, myself and Kylie have red arrows. Andy, What is coming up in the show apart from mine and Az's arrow error?
Yeah, we got a cracking show coming up tonight. So we're going to be talking about our game week 10s, a bit of a roundup of it, and obviously the fact that I was the only one with a green arrow this week. We're also going to be looking at talking about Spurs under their new management. So obviously Conte has been unveiled as their new manager now, which is probably the worst kept secret for the last couple of days. And we're just going to be talking about what we think about that, whether it's a good move, whether it's a bad move, whether we can start considering Spurs assets moving forward now, especially with their fixtures. I think they're top of the fixture ticker at the moment, so that's going to be something we're going to talk about. We're going to be looking at underperformers on this show as well. So we're going to be looking at the well-owned underperformers and also the less well-owned ones as well. So I know Joe always looks at his goals imminent table, but we're also going to look at those expensive players that are highly owned that are underperforming, and we're going to try and see whether we would keep hold of them or sell them and what we're thinking about doing them. Kylie's going to be doing a bit of a buy, sell and hold segment as well, which I think is going to be quite fun to do. And then we're going to be looking at the next 4 fixtures, have a little bit of a look at the community team that we're in charge of this year as well, talk about our differentials, and then do our team reveals ready for game week 11.
Okay, let's go with you first, Andy. You got a green arrow and I'm about to give you a red arrow.
No.
How did your fabulous game week go?
Yeah, do you know what? It actually started fairly well, to be honest. I had Christensen, I had Rudiger, I had Havertz, who all got me 6 points, so I was quite happy with that. And it just kind of went a little bit downhill from there, really. Salah got me a captain return, but at pretty much 200% EO, he's just a dead spot, isn't he? And Livramento came in for me off the bench, so I was quite happy with that. But apart from that, it's just blanks all over, really. So Cancelo, Alexander-Arnold, Saf, Foden, Antonio, Tony, all did nothing. The only other person that got me attack and return was Saka, and he was a second on my bench. So it wasn't an amazing week. 46 points, actually, I think it was around about the average, and it managed to get me a green arrow, so I'm happy with that.
I think that's why me and Az gave you a red arrow, because I've never known 46 points anywhere to get a green arrow.
That's what happens when you're down at my rank after I captain Havertz instead of Salah 2 weeks ago. So, to be honest, I'm happy moving forward. I was a little bit gutted and Bumo didn't play, but then Brentford looked quite poor against Burnley, so that was a bit maybe a bit of a showing to me that maybe Mbeumo isn't what I want him to be anyway. But yeah, I'm fairly happy. I'm fairly happy moving forward as well. Foden came in, and I'm looking to hold him in, long term anyway. So yeah, not too bad in the end. I'll take 46 and run, to be honest. It could have been a lot worse.
So yeah, a bit of bench points there. We'll come to Kylie's team in a second, because hold that theme of bench points. But here's my team. There's bench points, but they're so minor. So this is my total 42, which was a justifiable red arrow. I got a technical green arrow, a Scoutcast green arrow, because last time I was on, I've actually got gone up in the rankings. So I was something like 220,000, and I'm now 205. So I'm okay with that. 42 points. It was a good week to have a bad week. Christensen, either he plays, or if he doesn't, Livramento comes on. This week I decided to give Livramento a go, and he got me some points there. Salah captaincy, obviously. Rafinha, who was new in along with Kane 2 weeks ago for me. So they're starting to get the points. I'm hoping Kane does too. And on the bench, Armstrong. And my last decision to make really was Sarr or Armstrong. And I just went for Sarr because I just wasn't sure about Armstrong. But now I'm starting to think, if Broha's out, I think he's going to think... I think Hassan Hutel is thinking Armstrong is the sort of number 9. Che Adams is the sort of ball carrier Redmond figure. And that's the way they might do it, with Redmond out on the flanks. And I wonder if Broha's injured again, I will play Armstrong again. And he's against Villa this time. So I think he might earn a starting spot for me if Broha is still out with injury. And my only change was... No, this was David Monday, who was on last week, would have been proud of this one. I was backing the Brentford defence, bizarrely, but not on form, but on fixtures. I just thought they've got such a good fixture run. There's bound to be some clean sheets in there. It's nice and cheap. So I was backing them, so I'm just sticking with the plan. I got rid of Raya, got Fernandes in. And I don't think he was particularly responsible, for Burnley's amazing Barcelona-esque performance. I think... Brentford as a whole were bad, so I probably backed the wrong horse, but nevertheless, good fixtures. He'll play. He hasn't got anyone else.
I can't believe you did that. So I just noticed it. I only just saw Fernandes in goal. I was thinking, who's Fernandes?
I'll tell you what.
I was wondering that too.
Yeah, everyone's. I know.
He's changed position.
I know. I'm like the goalkeeper maverick. I've got.
Good God.
All my other choices had such awful fixtures last week. I thought Burnley was a clean sheet. I'm fairly certain Brentford have got to keep a clean sheet against Norwich, haven't they?
You couldn't get to Ramsdale.
Yeah, I could have easily got to Ramsdale.
Yeah.
I got Potts in the back, but I didn't want to get Ramsdale in because I just didn't think he was going to get a clean sheet that time. And also looking at the fixtures coming up, they're a bit patchy. I think, obviously Watford next great, but then what have they got after that? They've got anyway. We'll look at the fixtures later, but they're pretty mixed. So I wasn't so keen long term on Ramsdale. With goalkeeper, you've got to go a bit long term. So time will tell. But I can upgrade Steele to someone and then just get Fernandes in as a backup. I think I'm gonna need a backup over Christmas. But nevertheless, that was my crazy maverick move. Speaking of goalkeepers, Kylie.
Oh, you got tale of woe.
Yeah, 34 points. Tell us the good and the bad.
Right, basically this was a situation of, if I hadn't touched my team, it wouldn't have been amazing, but it definitely would have been quite a bit better. So the real punchline for this one is that for reasons that are still unclear to me, I decided at about 25... No, sorry, I'm forgetting deadline times now. It was about 5 to 11 on Saturday morning, while giving a cursory look at my team that, actually, Foster plays. Maybe because I have Vardy, and Vardy will surely score, I should bench Ramsdale and play Foster, because we all know how great Watford's defence is. So that was a very sound decision. I can only explain that based on the fact that I was feeling a little bit fragile from work drinks the night before, and I was actually racing off to do wedding dress trials. It's a really bad combination, and certainly a bad combo if you're trying to make last-minute fantasy football decisions. So don't recommend it.
So you were hungover and you just saw Foster, you just saw Lager, that's it, he's in.
Yeah. Well, that's it. No, but yeah, I was like, oh, Foster, he plays. Yeah, why not? There's zero actual sound reasoning involved in that decision. And of course, at about 11, I thought that was a really terrible move, and I'm probably going to end in tears. And of course, it did. So 8-point swing there for that. And then I had, I had Azpilicueta and Buemo, who both didn't feature. I figured one of them wouldn't, and I had Livramento on the bench, and he came in, so that was one positive thing that happened. But in my team, it was pretty unimpressive. I had to go Duffy third on the bench with 0 points deep. As a result of that one, because Douglas Luiz was the no-show as well. So, it was Foster with 2, Trent with 1, Livramento with 6, which is good. Cancelo, like everyone else, Duffy, sad. Foden, 2, who, by the way, I brought in for Saka, who did get an assist. So also not a great move. But I am happy to have Foden. But then, Havertz, who, saved the day with his assist.
I'll tell you what,
actual points.
He scored more than Salah. So,
He did. Should have captained him.
Yeah.
Too soon, maybe, for Andy, that one.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, you're not coming back again.
But Captain Salah, and then Vardy with a 1-pointer, Hwang and Antonio. So it was not one to remember, and 170-ish K red arrow. So...
Okay, so a genuine red arrow this time.
Like a real one.
For those just joining us, Andy has a green arrow, not a red arrow. For those listening on the podcast, no, I don't need to do that, do I? Just for the video. He got a green arrow. So rough with the smooths. I assume, Andy, you've been having a look. I've got a couple I've noticed. It's bench point theme. Fantasy Pig got 21 points in his 11. He got 46 points on his bench. Imagine, I don't think I've ever got that amount. But yeah, Ramsdale, James, Smith Rowe, and Livramento. I almost want to just put a minute's silence or something for that. But thank you, Fantasy Pig, for posting that on Twitter. FPL Tractor got 28 on his bench. So pales into insignificance when you look at the Fantasy Pig. Ramsdale, Gallagher, Livramento, and Brownhill. And FPL Jag, I noticed, also got very similar to that. So, Andy, any other tales of woe or joy in particular?
Yes. So I saw there was a comment on our YouTube last couple of weeks ago saying that Rough with the Smooth are taking a bit of a dip, and they didn't think that the stories were quite as good as they used to be. So I've got some
since you took it over.
Basically, yeah. So I've so it's hard. I can only work with what I'm given. So I'm trying to give it some artistic license this week. So
blaming the community.
So somebody called Jacob actually came into my DMs and put that his mate, so it's not him, his mate who's a butcher, butchering his team by the looks of things as well, did his transfers late at night, did his wild card. His wild card went horrendously wrong, and he only got 33 points. The problem was that he didn't press the wildcard button, and he ended up with -3 points for the week.
Oh, that was like my friend the other day when we did the rough with the smooth, and he similar thing.
Terrible. So did his wildcard, made 9 moves, but didn't press wildcard, so he ended up with -3 for the week. Which I mean, at least your guy ended up with positive points.
Yeah, but I mean, he's dropped about 45-50 points.
Yeah,
which is. Yeah,
that's awful.
That's awful. But that does happen. Lots of people in the Fantasy Football Scout community, and Spencer, one of our moderators, did that famously. If you he made loads of transfers as well, poor guy, and that. So okay. There
you go.
Tales
we've got another one from Eselman saying, "Oh boy, rough. He started the game week with 3 Arsenal players, Ramsdale, White, and Smith Rowe on the bench. He started Foster instead of Ramsdale. He had Mount, who obviously didn't feature, and he transferred in Ings for Ronaldo, who did not start either. So pretty much everything he could have done wrong, he did wrong that week. But his smooth." 2 of the Arsenal players did come on for him. So Smith Rowe and White did.
Wow.
And he also had Chilwell and Livra. So he ended up with 65 points in the end, which, considering the moves he made, he actually did very, very well. Mike 1981. This is a lovely smooth story, so we like having smooth ones still as well. Hi mate, don't normally post, but had to do so this week as I've had 2 weeks of the best transfers in 15 years of playing. Game week 9, he took out Mahrez for a hit, but brought in Mount for 24 points. Lovely stuff.
Wow.
Last week he transferred out Alonso and brought in James, who hauled for 21 points. So he's gone from 344k to 56k.
Hang on a minute. He can predict 20-point hauls.
Yeah. Has he told you what his transfers are for this week? And
the lottery numbers or anything like that?
Yeah. We actually asked him on before you, Kylie, and he said no. So that's why.
Understandably, he doesn't want to share the secrets.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But yeah, so I thought that was a lovely smooth one, to be fair.
Right.
And then the last one was from Krispy Kreme, and he says his rough was he had 46 points on his bench. Ramsdale, James, ESR, and Livra, very similar to your guy, Joe.
Yeah.
And his starting 11 only got 34 points. His deadline day selections deciding to play Foster over Ramsdale, and he played Hwang over James. So I thought those were pretty good. So.
Yeah, I think they're really good. So, blooming come at us. Come at us, community.
Come at us.
If you want to have a pop at Andy's shoddiness at doing this, then don't. Because...
No. I've already been given a red arrow instead of a green this week. I can't handle much more.
No. And you were meant to come on last week, and they said, oh no, we've got David Monday back, so you can't.
Fine. It's fine. Absolutely fine. I cried 2 hours? Something like that. 2-3 hours.
And there's more disappointment later on in the show when we come to differentials after I said, oh Andy, you can't have Mane as your differential. Well, anyway, hold that thought for our up and coming differential segment.
All going on this week.
Topic 1. It says I'm doing this bit, or I'm introducing it rather. Spurs Nuno experiment of not scoring has ended finally. That experiment didn't really work to win games. Suddenly Kane and Son are very much in demand, and Conte has taken over at Spurs from the hapless Nuno, I'm calling him. So it's a great run of fixtures. Suddenly everyone wants Kane and Son, or do they? A lot of people want Son, and people aren't so sure on Kane. So we've got a few questions from the community. I'm going to put a picture up, because this is a picture I took, but a member of the community sort of altered it. So I discovered at Hever Castle in Kent last week while I was away the original of that meme, you know, where the guy is with a woman and then sees another woman pass and everyone goes, look, it's that player, and now he likes that player. And anyway, so I found the Tudor version of that with Henry VIII with the wife, and you knew obviously he had a roving eye for another wife pretty much as soon as he got married. FPL managers, Antonio is the current Henry VIII wife, and they're looking at Kane. And I think some people are doing that. Also midfield, people are looking at Son as well. So I've got some questions I'll read out, and then I'll get your views on the Spurs assets. So Footy Mad Dad, is it unreasonable and short-sighted to not bring in any Tottenham assets for their good run of fixtures due to their poor performances of late? So classic form v fixture there. Vishnav, stick or twist on Kane, has good fixtures, but his mentality is worrying. Jack Brokenshire, I was just checking to see if Jack's in the live chat actually, he sometimes is. Jack Brokenshire, Ronaldo or Kane for the next few weeks, or Hokey Cokey. Hokey Cokey isn't a player, that is getting one of them in or one of them out and shaking them all about. Goopy, time to get Son, or is Mane better? I've got some thoughts on it. What do you two think? Go with you first, Kylie. You haven't got any Spurs assets? Are you tempted? Wait and see. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so context here is that I actually planned to have Son at the moment. I wildcarded in Gameweek 8, so the international break. And actually, I was in Newcastle for the Newcastle Spurs match. So naturally, I wanted Son in my team. He's one of my favourite players. And weird side note, every match that I go to, the away side wins, scoring 3 goals. So I was like, well, naturally, somehow, despite being pretty terrible, Spurs are going to score 3 goals against Newcastle in this match. Have to have Son. But then 10 minutes before the deadline on my wild card, I actually caught the false positive COVID news for Son. And it wasn't until after the deadline that it turned, that we found out it was a false positive. So I removed him from my team. He would have been in there anyway now.
Was that while you were was that on a wild card? So
yeah,
you didn't,
on a wild card.
Because I know some people got him in and then had to remove him for a hit and then had to suffer the ignominy of him then scoring.
I know, that would have been way, way worse. At least I was on the wild card and I basically just removed him for Saka and just left the money in the bank. So, I mean, in looking at the fixture run, before Nuno got the sack and we saw that Conte was coming in, I was already quite interested in getting Son in because I do love him as a player. And I think when we look at him and we look at that Spurs team, despite how sort of poor they have been, he's still performed. I mean, if you look, I think it's 4 goals and 1 assist he's got so far versus, I think in the first 10 weeks, it was like 9 goals and 2 assists. That sounds like quite a stark contrast, but 4 of those goals last season were scored in one match. So when you think about it that way, he's not like massively underperforming against what we'd sort of expect, despite Spurs and despite Kane. So, and I sort of figured, all right, the fixtures are going to be really good. I'm going to hope it's going to work there. Now I think we will see the masses move to Son. And I think because he's maybe the more obvious move, just because of form, people might feel a little bit more comfortable. I think the Kane is the interesting discussion point here, right? Because we're looking at someone who has so much pedigree and, he's historically been an auto captain when you look at these fixtures. And then he's coming in with 1 goal, 1 assist just in the one match. And we're thinking, okay, now that we've got Conte here right ahead of the new fixtures, can he revive him? That's the big question that we all want answered. We obviously don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think there's lots of things that could be said, tactically, Nuno wasn't working, but also there's that hunger that we would usually associate with Kane. I mean, this is a guy who swore on his daughter's life that he scored a goal so that he could claim it from his teammate. I mean, that's pretty hardcore stuff. And that's what we're used to from Kane. And that's not what has been on display this season. So
do you remember when Christian Eriksen scored and then Kane sort of scored?
Yeah, exactly.
He claimed it. He even took it off of Christian Eriksen.
I know.
Everyone loves Christian Eriksen.
He's very friendly, lovely teammate. So it was
He'd have probably claimed it. No, I won't go there. But yeah, Christian, Kane, he can sink low, and that's how committed he is. But I like my strikers to be egomaniacs.
But that's the thing. You want that egomania because you're like, I want those points in my team. So, I think Conte, because of the caliber of him coming in, and he's, already publicly said that he admires Kane. We've probably all seen those quotes from him over the summer where he's talking about how Kane should be played, he should be in the box and, all of this sort of stuff. So that all bodes well. And maybe that's the kind of person coming in that could, reinvigorate him a bit. I think what's interesting with Kane is that we as FPL managers, we're dreamers. We're all like wanting to chase that sort of elusive 300 point scoring unicorn. I'm not saying Kane is going to score 300 points, but that's the dream.
I just got this image of him as a unicorn now, dancing around.
There we go. But that's what we want to kind of bring us up the ranks, to glory. And because I believe that Son's ownership is only going to get higher and higher, and we're looking at such a low-owned Kane, awkward price, especially given that, there's the Ronaldo kind of fixtures coinciding at the same time, maybe we could get him at a sort of lower ownership than we normally would. That's the dream, I think. And I think we all want that option. We want him to kind of revive so that we have that available to us, we're not all on Son.
I like this sort of this feeling of optimism about it, but also this likening a manager like Conte coming in to a team like Spurs with all these great assets, potential assets, even in when we mention their defence yet as well, and Conte coming in after Nuno, and that's what it is. It's dreams. This is the dreamers out there in the FPL community, and that's why I've got Kane in. He's been with me for years through thick and thin. All his his low prices, his high prices, but he's a reliable starting player that can score big at any moment. I can let you down at any moment as well. And the thing about Kane I found interesting is a lot of people going, I don't like his mentality. I don't like the way he looks, and I don't know why he's not smiling. I don't like the way he slouched down. Look, I'm basically a professor of Kaneology. I feel like I've owned him so long. Every time I look, he always look miserable. He always drops D. He always huffs and puffs at his teammates because they're not passing, they're not creating. So he runs deep, and it's just his face. He's just got a sad face often, and so I don't look at that, and I think some people think, he must be, or it must be miserable because he didn't move to City. Well, he's now got an absolute world-class manager there. He is a professional footballer. He is absolutely obsessed with scoring, as we know, and I think this could revive him. I'm glass half full on this one. Andy, you asked what I meant by glass half full, glass half empty.
Yeah.
How are you with Spurs? Is your glass half full or empty?
I will 100% be owning an asset for their fixture run. I feel like I know people hate saying it, but I feel like that new manager bounce is going to happen, because what's going to happen, I'm assuming, is that they've gone through this run of just being so bad at having shots on goal, and no matter who comes in, even if it was an interim boss for a couple of weeks, I felt like those players are going to be let loose a little bit, which is good. I am completely thinking the opposite of you, though, Joe. I'm looking at it and just thinking Son seems the safer move for me, mainly because even if it's not going to quite work with Conte straight away, I feel like Son's still going to do very well anyway.
But are you saying that because he fits into your structure? Because often I see this.
No. I like Son.
You just think Son, if you had a wild card now, you would have Son on it, not Kane.
Yes, yeah, I would. The only reason I do like the idea of Kane is because it would be very easy to move to Ronaldo when they have their fixture turns. I do quite like that, because I feel like then Kane would be a nice fixture holder for a bit of a holder for moving on to Ronaldo. I just feel like the potential for Son now at 10 million in midfield. I just feel like he's such better value than Kane, personally. I do worry as well. You mentioned about Spurs having great assets over the pitch. I don't think they do. I don't think this is a very good squad, personally. I don't know. There might be Spurs players in the chat that are going to crucify me here.
We only need 3.
Yeah.
So when I say that, by FPL, when I say great assets all over the pitch, I mean 3.
Yeah.
Do they have 3? That's all we need.
Do they have 3? What, Reguilon are you counting?
Reguilon. Well, I'll come to that in a second.
Yeah.
Reguilon,
I don't know.
Kane and Son.
I am just of the opinion, I think people are massively overhyping this very, very quickly. And I feel like, they're saying, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Like Kylie was alluding to about the Kane will get 300 points and things like that. And
we're dreamers, though. We're chasing the unicorn. The unicorn.
And like I said, I think own one of them. I completely understand that. And I'll be owning Son. I get that. I think we just need to temper expectations a little bit, because they've had the whole season so far playing this way of football that is getting no shots at, and it's not just going to happen straight away. My biggest thing with Son is Everton are terrible. Do you get him in this week? I feel like it's a wait for the moment. I don't feel like Conte's going to have much of an impact straight away. Literally he's going to be there for a couple of days before they play Everton. So I feel like then at the next week, it's good to just watch this week and see what happens, and then get him in next week personally. But it's going to be interesting. I'm just not quite as hot on Kane yet as you are, I don't think, Joe. But I do love the idea that he's so low owned that if he does bang, you're going to be loving life.
Okay, right.
And I'd actually just clarify, despite all of the kind of optimism, and that's what I want.
Yeah.
As opposed to necessarily how I feel, which is
I actually let him destroy your dreams.
No, I'm somewhere between the two of you, to be honest. I'm more of a Son lover than a Kane lover, but I like the idea of what Kane represents. I think is the thing.
So you pick me over Joe. That's all you have to say. That's absolutely fine. Thank you, Kylie.
In the middle.
Fence sitting. No, I would probably go Son initially myself, but I really would like to see Kane do well, and I would like the opportunity to get him in. I think I just want to watch Kane a little bit and see some sort of improvement there first.
Well,
but I think people who go first could be rewarded.
I'll put up a quote here, a tweet here rather, that our colleague Gianni put up earlier. He is he's a Chelsea fan, isn't he? But definitely, I don't know. I definitely know he is a Italy fan. So he knows a lot about Italy. So he was saying some of Conte's best work was with Italy at Euro 2016. It was the worst squad of the last 100 years, but they beat favourites Belgium, Spain, as well as Sweden before losing on penalties versus Germany. Many said they were the team of the tournament. The front three, they played for Sampdoria, Southampton and Sunderland. So you're talking Pella from Southampton, Eder. I've got the picture of the Italy squad that was up there, and we can see the sort of formation he has, and we can see that he is getting the best out of terrible players. And so when we're looking at, say, for example, Chelsea or Inter Milan, Conte's dealing with really great players. But as Gianni was saying here, when Conte took with Italy, he's dealing with the worst Italy squad, in his opinion, in the last 100 years. Arguably, could this be the worst Spurs squad of the last 100 years? Certainly, it's not getting many plaudits. So if he can get the best out of these types of players and emerge as one of the best teams of this particular tournament, I have hope that he's going to do well, not only with bad players but good players as well, and revive them. So Conte favours a three at the back, rampaging wing backs, 2 or 3 up front. So as I said, sometimes with great players, say for example at Chelsea or Inter Milan. Sometimes it's these sort of players at Italy. So that's why I'm a dreamer chasing this unicorn. And I've already got Kane, and I'm going to get Son in a couple of weeks, and I'm working towards that. And you remember Son and Kane last year? Well, here's another picture to put up.
Are we in? No, we're in 2021 now, aren't we? I was just checking.
Yeah, we are. But let's go. Well, let's take you back. I haven't got the graphical skills to do that wobbly thing where we sort of go back in time. But pretend we are. So, could we do that? That's just me. Okay.
There you go.
Conte, Spurs. So here's a picture of Conte and Lukaku at Inter. Aren't they happy? They're all smiling away. He's ecstatic, in fact. But these are the key stats, really, for Kane and Son there. This shows how potent they were under, I wouldn't say a great manager these days with Mourinho, but certainly a better manager than Nuno. But anyway, Kane scored 23 goals, Son 17. In terms of big chances, Kane created 30, Son 23. And in terms of assists, Kane had 14 and Son 10. If Kane scores or assists, Son is going to be on the other end of it. If Son does the same, Kane is very likely to be on the other end of it. So getting both of them, we're talking Suarez Sturridge type territory here. So I definitely want them. Kane is the tricky one to get, and I've already got him, so I'm fine with that. Son is less tricky to get. I'm about 1.5. I've got to steal 1.5 million from somewhere in my team, and I think I can do that quite easily. So I can upgrade Jota to Son at some point. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And I look at last season, I think, what can you do? So once again, glass half full for me there. I've got another slide as well put up here. This is Spurs this season. And this is less exciting stats. And this show that Son had 6 big chances and Kane 4. Obviously, he's had 9 starts, and that's across 8 starts for Kane. In terms of goals, Son has had 4, completely trouncing Kane there, and Kane just had just the 1. And in terms of assists, 1 each there. So hasn't been great shakes so far, but as I said, that's the team it is. And I mean, I haven't seen Kane, Son, Lloris, any of them wishing Nuno the best. They've obviously just driven him out. And the fans have as well. I mean, compare that, say, when Steve Bruce left. The outpourings from the players. St. Maximin wrote this essay about how wonderful Steve Bruce was. We're not seeing that with it. Nuno, it was just pack. It like literally, it was just like they just threw his suitcases at him and said, "Off you go," swearing at him.
I suppose it's hard to build up relationships in 10 weeks, isn't it?
Well, it's a bit sad when you think he left Wolves, where he was highly respected, and then such a short, unsuccessful stint at Spurs. It's not great.
No, it's not great as well. So, yeah, that's me. Kane and Son, I'm up for both. Kylie, very keen on Son. Maybe Kane, but Son. And Andy, you're keen possibly for a bit of wait and see, but Son, but Kane's not there. Yeah. This is music to my ears as a Kane owner. A 6% owned Kane is literally music. I mean, there is music in my head playing.
I just feel like people need to temper expectations. I feel like you can go on Twitter for like a couple of hours at the moment and think that Spurs are going to be Arsenal from 2004, 2005 kind of thing. I just think we just need to temper expectations a little bit, and it could take a while for this team to change. That's all.
Well, I'm just looking. Some people are just looking at miserable Kane, and I'm looking at happy Kane polishing all his golden boots by his Christmas tree. Perhaps, maybe you stay in my team for that long, and I think it's a lovely image. And I also have this new image of him now as a unicorn dancing across dreamland.
The only thing I will say about Kane is that I do like the thought of having a captaincy option other than Salah. I do, because I think if they're both in their prime, Kane's a better player than Son to own, I feel, because you're more happy to captain him personally. But it's just, for me, my argument is whether they're going to be those players we want them to be, if that makes sense.
Okay. Just before we move on to the next topic, I just want to thank all those in the chat that have joined us. The Mark, Godbury, and Jack Brokenshire, I mentioned earlier. He is in the chat. He just wasn't in the little segment of the chat I'd looked at, but he is there. I did see him move in. Steve Elbows, Luke, Lynn, Emma, Alexander, and more. You're just in that little segment I've seen. So well done for joining us. Only a few likes though, so as usual, I don't care really whether you like it or not. Just press the like button, smash it, and all those kinds of things with it. Just press the like button, and that apparently helps something complex involving algorithms. But thanks a lot for joining us. Do press that like button. And Andy, we're going to talk about underperformers. So I've got a couple of slides. Which one do you want first? Do you want the well-owned underperformers or the less-owned underperformers?
I think well-owned, please.
Let's go well.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were talking about this before we came on, about the fact that, we've all got Salah at the moment. Salah's 200% EO, which means he's almost a dead spot. But we've got some other players in our teams that are actually quite expensive as well, that are kind of underperforming. And we're looking at them thinking, which ones of these players that are underperforming in our teams should we hold for the long term? Which ones should we hold for medium term? And which ones actually should we kind of cut our losses on? And Joe's just brought up it's a very small list, because we were talking about how it's small, and it's probably a good thing as well that it is quite small, because we want to be quite focused on this bit. But we've got Cancelo, we've got Trent, and we've got Grealish, who in some ways are underperforming this year, either based on their price, based on their team, and how we think they should be performing. And I wanted to put to you two, basically, how do you feel about these three players? If you own them, would you be cutting your losses with these players yet? Now, as Joe's just mentioned, he's trying to find 1.5 million to fund Son. People are going to be trying to get up to Ronaldo and Kane soon. All of a sudden, people are going to be trying to upgrade Antonio to Ronaldo and Kane, and it's quite a big upgrade. And I'm going from Havertz to Son potentially. I've got the money in the bank, but if I didn't, how was I going to make that move? And I think people are going to start looking at their defenders. People like Cancelo and Arnold. Cancelo hasn't kept a clean sheet for the last 2 games, hasn't got any attacking returns. Is it time to cut losses with people like that? And so before I say my thoughts about it, I wanted to try and put it to you. So Kylie, if you wanted to talk about them first, those 3 players there, if you own them, which one of those would you be cutting your losses on already, or would you just be keeping all of them?
I definitely would be cutting my losses on Grealish, to be honest. I just don't think that Grealish is the best attacking option. I mean, obviously, certainly for the first number of weeks, he appeared to be nailed and was playing every game, and he's still played loads of minutes, but he's just not. When you compare him for a very similar price, so he's 7.8, Foden's about 8.1, 8.2. There's so little in it. that I don't think perceived nailedness is a justified reason to hold on to him. Foden has a higher ceiling. That's been demonstrated. I think Grealish, when he was with Aston Villa, was completely different. You know, he was totally central to that team and he was really consistently delivering points. I just think he might have been an experiment for people and maybe it's time to move on. He's quite an easy sell. I think it's a lot more difficult with Cancelo and Alexander-Arnold because we know what they are capable of in their teams. They're both quite proven assets. I mean, it takes a lot to sell Trent. It really, really does. I personally had one experience of selling Trent when he wasn't sort of injured or something. And that happened to be the week that he got, 24 points? Oh. I can't know. It was a couple of seasons ago during the lockdown. Yeah. Fairly traumatized by that experience. And he had zero form going into that as well, if I remember correctly. So it seemed a great idea at the time. That's not to say that, you know, that's going to be a reflection on how things go this season. And, you know, Liverpool, they have been really strong, returning lots of clean sheets this season, but, you know, they just drew with Brighton. So I think West Ham can score against them. Certainly think that Antonio could score against them. So, yeah, he's underperforming a bit, but I'm just really happy to have him in my team. And I think he's really hard to get back in if you go and you sell. Cancelo, I'm maybe a little bit more open to. He's been nailed somehow. I mean, he's played every game so far. And Diaz, the one that we always think is going to be the most nailed bar Edison in that team, is actually the one who has had a rest. I believe he will get rested at some point. I think 2 quiet, low-scoring game weeks is probably not enough reason to sell him. I mean, when you watch him, you just feel like there's constantly the opportunity for him to score or assist. He's really exciting, and there's that kind of thrill when you own a player like that, you know, and you kind of have to have a little bit of joy in your team. So for me, I think they're well owned for a reason, and I think that they are quality and that they will come back. So it wouldn't be for me, but Grealish, yeah, I think he's an easy sell.
Joe, what do you think?
First of all, some people watching this might think, why is this list so small? So Andy asked me to put a list of highly owned low performers in. So basically they're underperformers. So obviously Cancelo, people would recognise. They look at him on the pitch and you think, God, how isn't he scoring more points? How isn't he assisting that? How isn't he getting those goals? Well, these are the stats that show it. You know, he should be involved in at least 2 more goals there, and Alexander-Arnold is really high there. And then I've got Grealish, and there's a few others who are like minus 0.076, for example, or something. Say, for example, Antonio. So Antonio is underperforming, but not to that extent that, say, Cancelo is or Alexander-Arnold. So that's why this list is quite small. And I think that shows that at the moment that those that are bringing in the points are either overperforming, and I don't mean that in a particularly bad way. Messi overperforms, but it doesn't matter. Vardy overperforms, it doesn't matter. You know, if they're clinical and they're world class and elite, they should do. And so the likes of Salah is overperforming. I don't care. I'm not going to suddenly not captain Salah because some stats say he's overperforming. He's just simply very good. But also on the stats as well, they're just doing as they should be as well. So most of them are just sort of they're scoring or they're assisting, and the expected stats say they should be as well. So that's why this list is very small and very intriguing. And as Andy pointed out, these are the sorts of players people are going to dump. I do agree with Kylie. Grealish is the one. I own Cancelo and Alexander-Arnold. They're not going anywhere for me. I like the look of them. I think they always look capable. I think they can get clean sheets. They play for great teams, attacking teams. Teams that can get clean sheets on their day. They're just and huge scores as well. So yeah, they're staying for me. I already have Kane in with the structure, so I don't need to find any money there. Son, I mean, luckily my team's rubbish, so I've got the likes of Sarr still there and Jota. So I've got plenty of players I can get rid of for free up money. I don't need to get rid of good players like these. I've got plenty of dross to get rid of. Although, having said that, Antonio is partially tempting, and so if some people want to get rid of Antonio in order to get to Son or Kane, for example, or another player they want to free up money to get a Chelsea wing back in, fine. I don't think that West Ham's fixtures aren't that great, but for me, Cancelo, Alexander-Arnold stay, and I would be very happy if people dump them. I recently got Rafinha, and I was delighted to see his price drop, and I was delighted to see people getting rid of him, because I don't know if I'm looking at a different Rafinha to these people, but he is. I mean, I can't believe I didn't get him in first off. He is, and I can't believe he's 6.5. He's absolutely world class player. He happens to play for Leeds, but he's going nowhere. So that's another player that people were thinking of, and I'm sure we'll talk about him in the sort of buy, sell, hold bit in a bit. But yeah, Andy, I'm sticking with these two. How about you?
Yeah, no, I think exactly the same. So I look at Cancelo and Arnold, and I think, just like Kylie said, they're exciting players, aren't they? Alexander-Arnold's still very highly owned as well. Cancelo is one of those players that he could conceivably get you a brace one week. And if you've got any defenders that could get you braces, I mean, you've got to hold them. But I do understand if people need to free up money and they want to put it into their midfield and up front, because people... I'm playing 4 at the back every week at the moment. I've got Cancelo, I've got 2 Chelsea defenders, and I've got Alexander-Arnold. And straight away you look at your defence.
You're benching Livramento.
Yeah, benching Livramento because I got those 2 Chelsea defenders. So it's like, well, one of them's probably not going to play every week, so Livramento comes in. But Grealish is the one on this. I think if I still had Grealish, I'd be cutting my losses now. Especially 7.8, you could move him to Foden, you could move him to most people, couldn't you? So I pretty much think the same as you guys.
Shall I put the next slide up? This is a better list, I think. This is underperformers who are lowly owned. So these are the differentials we need. And those that watched the captaincy video earlier today, myself and Tom, right, Salah, you can't. He's getting on for 200% effective ownership, which means everyone around you owns him, and they're all captaining him. So unless you triple captain him, or you somehow get Mane and Salah, which we might consider in a bit later in the show, if you do something like that, it's the only way you're going to really benefit from that. So you've got to find these differentials. So I'll put this slide up and take it away, Andy.
Well, actually, Joe, I'm so sorry. This is a really bad time, but both my children are kicking off massively. So I'm going to have to love you and leave you. Is that okay?
Okay, that's absolutely fine.
Sorry, Kylie, to cut it short.
I will take over. What usually happens at this point is that means that all the pictures will go awry, and
does that mean I might get a green arrow?
No, we've all got red arrows.
Oh, that's right.
So temporarily, you may be in Andy's spot. So Andy, yes. Oh, sorry. Yes. I hope it sorts itself out.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
See you, Andy.
Rightio. Okay, so yeah, you're a bit mixed there. So I am going to do something here, which hopefully... No, yeah, I've got you. So basically you are now where Andy is. So I'm going to try and move you over, if you don't mind. There we go. You're moving house temporarily.
Bit of relocation.
I've relocated you back to where you should be, and so I will go through this table here. So Andy's left at the good bit, I think. So he also asked me to look at low-owned players with, who with their delta for expected goal involvement. They were underperforming. And these were low owned. So basically, I just went down the list and I just selected those who were pretty much under 10%, and many of them were under 2%. So Mbomo, who I obviously completely mispronounce each time, but he's almost in a league of his own there. Yeah. He should have been. I mean, you can see him hitting the woodwork. He should have been involved in at least 2 more goals. And I just wonder, is it only 2 more? He should have been involved in 6 more goals.
I think he set a record or something for most times hitting the woodwork. It's actually ridiculous.
Yeah, he's basically a carpenter. He's hit the woodwork so often. But yeah, he's top there. If he is fit, he's actually my top target for the week. As I mentioned, I've got Sarr, and this is great for me because I can free up a tiny bit more money. and get rid of an underperforming player who's just not figuring on here. He's underperforming and not performing, whereas not underperforming and should be. Got Gundogan on here as well. Lots of people ignoring him. You mentioned Grealish. Would you be interested in Gundogan?
I feel like I read something on Twitter that suggested that he's not maybe entirely fit or something.
Ooh, okay.
A quote from sort of pre-Champions League quote from Pep. And he also mentioned something about KDB trying to sort of build back up to, his usual performance level.
Yeah.
So, but I think Gundogan is a great price, right, for a City player if we feel that he can kind of find that form. I mean, last year he was amazing, right? So he's kind of the right sort of price. He's not someone I'd look at the moment. I've got Foden, and I think Foden's front of mind for a City attack for most people. But I think that there could be a time when he comes into contention.
Yeah. And as Mark has just pointed out in the chat, the key figure here with Gundogan is the start's only 6. So he's just simply not nailed on. And that's one of the many first rules of FPL. If they're not nailed on, don't get them. Unless, of course, they're a Chelsea defender and you've got Livramento as your first bench. Richie at Newcastle, I find intriguing because he's exactly the sort of unfashionable player that has no right to be in any table or consideration. He's had 10 starts. He should have been involved in at least one more, getting on for 2 more goals. He's already got an assist. He's 4.9, and he plays for the richest club in Europe. So, watch this space with Richie. An intriguing differential. I know you'll turn your nose up at it, but and quite rightly.
Yeah, I think it's hard to. I think at the moment it's really hard to justify choosing almost any differential defender, because as we've sort of said, you've got Alexander Arnold, you've probably got Cancelo, if not Diaz, and then there's the Chelsea players, and then you've got Livramento, and we've maybe got Reguilon being a future option. So where do you put a Richie, and who do you ignore in favor of him? I think that's where we're going to find it, and it might be the right move because there's only so many spots for a differential in your team if it's the same as the template. But hard to justify Newcastle option at the moment.
No, I agree. I think there's too many better defenders to consider from better sides. It's such great value with the likes of Livramento, Ben White at Arsenal as well. I mean, why would you go there? But nevertheless, he's an interesting one there. Around a bit later this time last year, I put some of these tables up, and Luke Shaw started emerging as Richie is here, and people laughed at it, saying, "Oh yeah, he ate all the pies, blah blah." But then suddenly everyone wanted Luke Shaw, and they just remembered, "Oh yeah, he's quite good, isn't he?" And Richie has been good in the past as an FPL asset. My man Adam Armstrong here, those that watched the last game, he was unfortunate. So yeah, there's a hole in him somewhere if he can just find the target, and maybe that's his issue. Maybe he is one of those players who just can't find the target. But
he's quite prolific shooter, isn't he? When he plays,
yeah. Well, which is what I want. I want my strikers to just shoot a lot. Some of them got to go in. So yeah,
what of probability says surely.
Watkins at Villa. My last week's goal imminent table featured Watkins on it, and hey presto, there it was. It came. So while Villa are in the doldrums, I do think Watkins is worth considering. Just a watching brief, I think, at the moment. But this next guy here, Bowen. Now, if I was wildcarding, I would remove Antonio and I would get Bowen in, because I think West Ham are still a good side, and Bowen is the guy that is most involved, and he's underperforming. He's on set pieces, he's getting assists, goals, and his XGI delta, say the mathematicians, decrees him to be a very potential performer there. So yeah, you probably got other issues in your team, but are you tempted by Bowen?
I could be. I mean, he's someone that I have looked at. Obviously, with the fixtures and having Antonio, I wouldn't be proposing a double up, but it's quite interesting to see him on this list of underperformers, given that he's actually got excellent form at the moment. He has been really consistently returning. So I think it could be. I think it's a move that probably not a lot of people will make at this point. I think they might look at him I think it's about game week 18 that the fixtures really turn and we've kind of got Norwich, But if you were so inclined to remove Antonio, or as you said, if you're on a wild card, Bowen is a nice differential there. But it still gives you, some exposure to West Ham, who, they're performing brilliantly.
That's what I was thinking as well. And I'm starting to, I don't know whether this is the case, particularly with West Ham, but slowly I'm coming around to the idea that every striker in the Premier League is basically Giroud. And all the points are going to be in wing backs and wingers and people like Smith Rowe, interesting number 10s. And I'm not sure. And I just wonder if West Ham are going down that route as well, because Bowen has been the one getting the points.
Yeah.
And I just wonder.
Certainly the last few weeks.
Yeah. I know
his emergence has coincided with, a drop off for Antonio, both in terms of points and obviously the data as well.
And this next guy on the list, Chris Wood, my favourite, 6.7, 10 starts as you would expect, a couple of goals, looking good. Should have been involved in more. But it's Maxwell Cornet that's the one that's catching the eye. He's nice and shiny and new to people. But I do think, I know they've got a tricky fixture this weekend against Chelsea, but I do think one of Chris Wood or Cornet could be quite good. And Chris Wood is underperforming. But... yeah,
I had him briefly before my wild card for the Norwich match, where it's a given rule that if you have a player against Norwich that they're going to score and find form. I was pretty sure that's how it worked, but he didn't deliver. But he does just consistently tick away most seasons. So
he does, and that's what makes me think about, say, for example, Tony. Yes, it wasn't Chris Wood who comes away with the points against Norwich, and I don't own Ivan Toney, and I look at the fixture with Norwich, but then I think, well, is he the player to get? Is it another asset? Anyway, I'll just go down this list because we've got a sort of buy, hold, sell bit. So this is almost turning into that, but this is more looking at these low-owned players. And Lucas Moura at Tottenham, keep an eye on him, obviously, because he could be a regular starter and he could flourish. Redmond is there. Redmond's always on my goals imminent table.
And so I was going to say, isn't he like a chronic underperformer? I feel like he lives on these tables.
Do you know what? And it's good you say that, because he is chronic. So, because when you look at these stats and you look at, where they are on these types of tables, I think you do have to look at players like Redmond and Benteke, who are just often there, and they can go through huge droughts of not getting any points. I think I did own Redmond a couple of years ago towards the end of the season, and he was incredible. He got me loads of hauls, but I think that was it.
And I think I remember that season because I remember captaining Redmond in the last game week of the season when it was a sort of Hail Mary situation for my main mini league. And actually he returned that week, but not since. And I think we kind of have to just accept that some players underperform consistently. And
interestingly, Kane is on the list as well. So it's no great shake. Should have been involved in one more goal over whatever 10 game weeks that we've had, but nevertheless it shows that he's been underperforming as opposed to what he's expected to have done on the pitch. And I find that intriguing and heartwarming. The Unicane is here. And Havertz is just squeezed on. I put him in here. I think he's about 7% owned, so he's pretty much still a differential. Owned by quite a number in the community. I've seen he's in the sort of top 10k template. I think he's a hold. You've got to accept rotation and the fact that he's basically Giroud. in a team of better players.
Yeah.
But
And you got
nevertheless,
him, right? Everyone got him for the 3 fixtures. That's
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
one of them. And
yeah,
yes, 1 assist in however many
yeah,
goals they've scored is quite disappointing. But at the same time, you're hardly going to sell him this week. So, I think
no,
against Burnley.
yeah.
So
Okay, well, coming on that theme of like, whether we keep all those players, we've got this buy, held, hold, sell section, and hopefully you've got in the notes there. It's a good way of sort of covering off the community questions that we haven't already covered as well. So you can sort of rattle through them and ask me, and not Andy because he's not here.
Yeah.
So I've got a fabulous graphic. People will just be amazed by this. Yeah, that's right. It just simply says buy, hold, sell in Arial. Bold, because that was all I could do in the nick of time. So while you're reading them out, and I think whether I'll buy, hold, and sell, I'm going to move you around again.
Great. Okay, so the first one that we have is from Helen, and it's about Azpilicueta. So hold or sell or swap sideways to another Chelsea defender. I sympathise with Helen because I'm very much in this exact camp at the moment, but I'll come to you first, Joe. What do you think?
Yeah, I just want to point out Steve Elbows in the chat has said the buy, hold, sell. The way I've got the BHS there, like the hugely unfashionable failed department store. So it's very apt with my terrible graphics. Yeah, I'm sort of in the same position because I've got Christensen, and I got Christensen for a bit of value, and I've also because I've got Livramento and Cody as my backups, who have frequently come in for Christensen and got me points. So Christensen pretty much gets me points every week, even though he doesn't play every week. So, and that pleases me. Now I'm sort of playing a 4 at the back. I've promoted Livramento to just a starter at the moment, especially against Villa, who are weak down his side. It's worth noting. So for me, I'm going to keep hold of Christensen, and I think even if you've got the likes of Azpilicueta, I would just keep. You mentioned about Havertz, you got him in for these fixtures here. Yeah. I wouldn't mess around with getting rid of Azpilicueta for James and then see James benched, or the similar with Chilwell. Will Chilwell play this against Burnley? I think so. But did he play against Burnley last time? No, Alonso did because he preferred with his height against Burnley. Has Alonso played in the Champions League because to give Chilwell a rest, or has he played because the manager's got
minutes,
wants him to have minutes so that he can be fresh and ready for the giants of Burnley? I don't know. I mean, I personally think there must be other issues in a team. If you've got a Chelsea defender, just stick with them. I wouldn't just keep wasting transfers moving Chelsea players around, because the one you get rid of is going to score. Azpilicueta will get 10 points one week. So who else have we got on the list?
And I mean, to be honest, like from my perspective, I actually feel the opposite of you. I'm really tempted to go for Chilwell. I wouldn't go for James because he keeps getting subbed on. Chilwell sort of fits the mold of what you're saying about Christensen. Like if he doesn't come on, Livramento does.
Yeah.
I think the hokey cokey with Chelsea defenders is, risky, but I can't deny that it's been really hard holding Azpilicueta for 2 weeks, watching sadly as everyone else rakes in the points. But I think it is a massively luxury move that could go wrong. And to your point, if you have any other kind of fire to put out, then maybe it's a bit of a hard one to sort of do.
I can't believe anyone hasn't got. I mean, their team must be amazing if their biggest issue is I'm going to remove Azpilicueta for Rudiger or James or Chilwell. Then they must be leading it.
Although Azpilicueta's played tonight and maybe he needs minutes as well, but there'd be tears if Azpilicueta does not play at the weekend.
We'll come to your team shortly, but have a good first sub.
That's it.
Who else did it? Yeah.
Okay, so we've got FPL Governor. Should we bother buying Lukaku when he's fit?
No, I don't think so. He is. If you've got him, sell him because he's not fit. So he's definitely not a hold. Some people might consider hold. I've seen people, hold and bench good players that are expensive just because it's a transfer you want to make. But I just would not go for Lukaku. I think it's evident with Chelsea. The FPL points are in the midfield or the wing backs, and they're just not with Lukaku. Meanwhile, you've got Kane, Ronaldo, Vardy. You've got but Bamford hasn't even come back from injury yet. Calvert-Lewin hasn't come back. I mean, it goes on. I think there are potentially better options by the time Lukaku might be fit, which could be after the international break. So he's a sell if you got him, and he's definitely not a buy. He's not a buy. Even a fit Lukaku's not a buy for me.
No. I mean, I think the opportunity's been missed, right? He's been injured for the whole opportunity period. That was the whole idea of him, was he was earmarked for Norwich and this run of fixtures. And by the time he's back, you're going to have Ronaldo, Kane, these guys with great fixtures. So you're kind of going to need to see him suddenly returning really well for Chelsea. Later in the season when there's a good fixture run to kind of want to go back there. Really hard to justify at the moment. Okay, so our next one kind of ties in with what you were talking about earlier with respect to Brentford. So it's FPL DJ. Is Tony worth getting? Good fixtures, but Brentford not scoring much.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I don't own Tony. So is he a buy? Yes, he's potentially a buy. But it's for Antonio. Do I want to buy Tony for Antonio, his brother? No, I don't. Do I want to buy Tony for Armstrong, who's playing Villa, if Broha's out? Probably not. That's quite a sideways move. So I might be looking at Brentford elsewhere. As if you've got Tony, of course, yes, he's a massive hold because he's playing Norwich next. He's definitely not a sell. But I do wonder, just going back to the likes of Lukaku again, I just do wonder whether
he's the scorer.
Yeah, I wonder about strikers, and I am seriously considering going against my beloved 3-4-3 or 4-3-3 and having a 3-5-2, 4-4-2, and just saying, right, just accepting there just ain't enough strikers, and there'll be two I want at any moment. But I'm not sure there's ever going to be three because they're all
injured.
They're all injured,
or not scoring,
or the managers are just using them as like they're just saying to them, "Hey, can you just be a lump and get in the way?" Because all these other players are just going to manoeuvre around and score points.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think also if you have Mbeumo, I definitely wouldn't be doubling up. I think. No. I think that it was quite trendy to do that in the sort of previous couple of weeks. A lot of people were talking about it because they feel like real stable options that are going to play 90 minutes every game. I prefer Mbeumo. I'm happy to have him. I'm going to hope that he starts getting goals instead of hitting the woodwork. But there are signs there that are pretty encouraging. Yeah, definitely. So I'd agree with you. I think at a stretch, you could buy him. I wouldn't say it's a terrible idea, but I think it's not something I would hugely advocate either, despite the fixture. Yeah, so but definitely hold.
What will happen here is people will Tony will score a brace this week because he's playing Norwich, and then everyone will message saying, "You're so rubbish! I can't believe we listen and view us." But the thing is, yes, well then look over the next 2 months. Will Tony keep doing that? And I'm not sure he will, but will some of the other midfielders we mentioned do that? Yeah. Well, we think so.
And he should score against Norwich, really. Yeah. So it is the fixtures beyond that you're kind of, unless you're wasting transfer to move him in and out. So, okay, next one is Caleb Turner. So Cucurella, I do not know if I'm saying that correctly.
No, you are. Excellent. Don't ask me. I assume you are. No.
Right. Well, I'll imagine that was correct. So at Brighton, ahead of their kind run. So what do you think? You're a Brighton fan?
Yes, I think he's great. He's nailed on. He's really attacking, gets really far forward. And he's slightly unknown to lots of FPL managers. So people are ignoring him. But I think he's absolutely great. Brighton's fixtures get good. We'll look at the next 4 game weeks shortly. But I think it's time to invest in Brighton. If I am tempted. to actually get a Brighton player in over a Brentford player. I just have the Brentford goalie at the moment, and I'm looking at other Brighton players, of which Cucurella is amongst them. I think he's a great asset to own. I think you're going to get clean sheets, and I think you're going to get the odd attacking return. And he's got really lovely hair as well.
Always a good reason. Well, I think especially if you don't have Sanchez, it is a good opportunity. We've talked a lot about how it's really difficult to break up that sort of defensive template at the moment. But if you are willing to go to someone a little bit different, then there is opportunity there. And I mean, he does look lively. He's had one attempt and it was on target. So 100% shot accuracy. That's great. And I think he's created 11 chances. I think one of them was a big chance. So, he has something about him. He's pretty kindly priced. Yeah. So could be, if you wanted to swerve the template a little bit, it could be a good differential to go for.
I don't own Sanchez. And a Brighton clean sheet hurts me a lot in FPL.
Every time, yeah.
But I love it as a Brighton fan. So I'm never that disappointed.
You're winning anyway.
Yeah, so that's all fine. But as an FPL manager, it's really bad for me. But in real life, I want it. It's a bizarre situation to be in. So yeah, I think he's a buy for me. Who's next on the list? I'm excited.
So FPL Midas, buy, hold or sell which of these cheap midfielders? Smith Rowe, Mbeumo, Gallagher. The little selection there.
No, I like them all, and I like to say I like all three, please. Along with Son and Salah, I think that's how you can afford Son and Salah and have a good rest of the squad, is to get these three guys in. I think they're great. In order, so all of them are a buy. If you've got them, all of them are a hold. None of them are a sell. Smith, who I really like. I've got an Arsenal fan down here in Somerset who I watched the Villa game with, and blimey, I know Villa were pretty bad, but Smith Rowe, wowzers! I was really impressed. He would be my top choice. So, arguably this week I'm going for a Sarr replacement, and Smith Rowe and Mbeumo are top choices there. Gallagher, I do really like. My one caveat with Gallagher, when Milivojevic plays, he takes the set pieces, and Gallagher's less effective in FPL terms. But when Milivojevic doesn't play, Gallagher's just incredible, and you really want him in your team. So
how do you know? That's the tricky bit, isn't it?
So what you're going to get with him, as we've been getting, is 2 points, 13 points. I do have him in my in my Sky team, and I love him. So I do like to have Gallagher there in one of my fantasy teams at least. But yeah,
I agree. I like all three. I actually started the season with Smith Rowe, and he looked really good, but obviously Arsenal were not looking great. So I did quite swiftly move on. But I have been watching him since, and I think that he just seems to be settling in so much, and he's making all the magic happen. So I think at that price, anybody who had him the last two game weeks has absolutely cleaned up.
They're mixed fixtures, but from he's so good that I think with attacking point of view, he could get some kind of returns in all of them. But I think if you got him in now for this weekend, he's got Watford next. It has to be returns there. Then the next two are players I do own at the moment. I see on the list here.
So Antonio, buy, sell or hold. This is the big question I think that everyone's facing at the moment, is what to do with Antonio. Yeah,
I'm keeping. I'm keeping because he's really good. But if I was wildcarding, I would very seriously consider covering. And people don't like the word covering, but I do think you can get good FPL returns with Bowen, and you can dump Antonio then. But at the moment, I've got Antonio. I've got him Gameweek 1. He's mega cheap, and I think he can get returns any week. And it's basically, as long as his hamstrings are going, I'll keep him. I see no reason not to. It's not like he's 10 million or something.
Exactly. And it's also that thing of, where do you go from Antonio that you feel such strong conviction about? I don't. I've looked at it and I think that, yes, there is, with his fixtures, you don't expect him to run amok. I think he could score against any team as well. But so arguably there's an opportunity there to find someone else. But with the number of forwards who are injured, we've alluded to a few of them, Bamford, Calvert-Lewin, they're sort of similar price range. It's really hard to sell him, and then that you're going to want to buy him back, at about game week 18. So it's hard to sell and then, kind of get him back in, and who do you go for that you think will guarantee that they will do better? I'm not sure.
I think as well, I mean, we have a bench. I mentioned the Sky team earlier. We don't have a bench in that. So you do have to remove these players if the form of fixtures that way. And with Antonio, if you just bench him, we've got the likes of Livramento, Ben White. We've got all of these players that can come in. And if you don't like the Liverpool fixture, there's no need to get rid of him. You can just bench him, and then you can bring him on when you want to play him. I do think. Yeah. I'm not saying I would never sell him. Never say never, but I can't see I think I would try and find money elsewhere for my Son fund. I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's other strikers that you could sell before him, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and last question from Matt, is Rafinha worth holding? He looks good, but Leeds don't.
Yes, well, Matt's got it there. I got Rafinha in fairly recently. I'm a new Rafinha owner this season, and he's one of those players like Trent. You see and you think, why don't I own them? and now I do, and he's just staying. And if I really didn't like the fixture, I would bench him. I think Bamford missing is a big issue. If we had Seb on, he would better give chapter and verse about Leeds' formation and performance and form here. But their numbers they're not as bad as you would. They're not like whipping boys or anything. And I do think Bamford being out is harming things. And I think with Rafinha, he's really good. He's really good. I can't sort of emphasise enough. I think it would belittle Leeds to say he shouldn't be at Leeds, and that's not the case. Leeds just should feel very happy. Leeds fans should be very happy and blessed, and hope he stays for as long as he does, because he's great and he clearly likes being in the team. When he there was a cruel. Tim Krul had made some comment about Leeds not being Barcelona or something, and then Rafinha answered him on Instagram with a graphic saying, "No, but we're Leeds," very, very passionate. It was about like a year too late. It was like he'd spent a year coming up with this comeback, which wasn't that great anyway. But in fact, he is passionate about it, and you can see him. And I just think he looks great, and I hold. Is he a buy? I think he is a buy.
I think he's a buy. Yeah. So from my perspective, I'm the opposite of you, Joe. I had him from the start of the season. I ended up selling him on that game week 8 wildcard because he was injured. Yeah. And we've kind of had each week since then is he injured, is he not? Yeah. So I've wanted to buy him in. But given I had other yellow flags in my team, I couldn't really justify doing it. I feel like I'm missing a limb not having Rafinha in my team. I had a pretty horrendous last season, and Rafinha was my saviour. So I was one of those ones that brought him in when he kept getting returns every week, and he was still really low owned. I don't know how it happened, but it went about 5 or 6 weeks before people started bringing him in, and I just think he's amazing ever since then. So at that price, he's so clearly an incredible player in that team, and Leeds are a little bit worrying. But when Bamford gets back, you have to assume that that's going to really help him, because he's not going to kind of be carrying that attack on his own. It's worth, and they still have good fixtures. Yeah, so.
And I think a lot of people think, but he doesn't get double-digit hauls. He gets 9s and 8s. And
That's good too.
So it's like if he gets 10 or 11 or 9, it doesn't. It's still really good.
Yeah, and especially at his price. So
Yeah.
you can't kind of argue with that.
Yeah, if he's
so that's all of them. I think.
yeah, if he averages 8 or 9, yeah, and he costs what 6.5. I don't even know what he is now. I didn't even care. I just saw it was just really
6, 7.
cheap. Is he 7 now? Yeah.
I think he's 6.7, unless he went up ahead of Norwich, possibly.
That's it. I mean, that's it. One thing I've done this season, I haven't really paid much attention to pricing, and I think it's really good. I think I saw something by FPL Partridge put something up on Twitter. It was really hit home with me as well. It's saying he doesn't really. I think it was him. He was saying he doesn't really look at the prices, and he makes his decision at the end of the week. And it's based on stats or eye test or research. Yeah. It's nothing based on price. So none of the decisions he makes is based on price. And I thought that's a really good way of doing it, really, because we're not buying these players because they're a particular price. I mean, they might be really good value, but we're getting them in because they're good players, or the team, they're in form, or their fixtures. So he's looking at those things, and I think you might make better decisions that way. Let's have a look at the next 4 game weeks. So we can see this is the season ticker, Fancy Football Scout. Here we've got Norwich at the top. It's going to be tricky to sell Norwich, seeing as they are basically a League One side. I mean, my local side, even though Brighton are my team, my local side is Andy's local side as well, Yeovil, and I've been seeing them, and they're pretty poor because they're in the National League at the moment. I reckon they could give Norwich a go. I mean, Norwich are really bad.
Yeah, they are. They're worse. I mean, we're used to them being bad when they come up, but they're worse this time. Yeah, they don't have Pookie doing it for them.
They're just they're just one, like Middlesbrough or Derby or whatever in the past. They're just a Championship side that are, smuggled a place in, stowed away with the big lads, and but second to them is Crystal Palace, and I think they're much more interesting under Vieira. The days of Roy Hodgson and these old men floating around Palace and South London, that's just not happening now. They're a really good side. They've got lots. They're packed full of good assets, like some Mitchell as well in defence.
Yeah, he just keeps ticking away.
And Guita, who was actually was on my hit list to get instead of Raya, but I didn't like the City fixture. And then I thought, I got to go for long term. And I thought, no, I'm not going to get any... Anyway, he would have got me more points than Raya's deputy. Anyway, Crystal Palace got Wolves, Burnley, Villa and Leeds. Great next 4 fixtures. Wolves and next, still chucking along with their amazing, great fixtures. Crystal Palace, they're West Ham, is tricky, but then Norwich and Burnley. Tottenham, they've got... I mean, Everton is not considered blue on this one. I think so. On the captaincy video we did with Tom earlier today, I mean, they are whipping boys at the moment, so that's why people are interested in Son and Kane. But after that, they got Leeds, Burnley and Brentford, so all potential for returns there. And then Brentford themselves with Norwich, Newcastle, Everton and Tottenham. Tottenham could be tricky for them. Newcastle, good fixtures still, so that's why I mentioned Richie. Brighton, Brentford, Arsenal, that's tricky, then Norwich, and then Brighton, my team, they got Newcastle next, Villa, Leeds, and then West Ham. Chelsea, still good fit. Well, the fixtures sort of turn a bit, so they got Burnley, then they got Leicester, Manchester United and Watford. And Leeds themselves, they got Leicester, Tottenham, Brighton and Crystal Palace. So they're not great fixtures for Leeds, but I do think Rafinha is a hold or buy. I still think so.
Yeah.
I think if you've got any other Leeds assets at the moment, I think they would be a sell. If you've still got one of their defenders, who's not ailing, obviously he's not going to be in many teams because of his injury.
Yeah.
But low down here is Watford, so I've still got Sarr, and he is top one to go. Form poor, fixtures worst. Arsenal, Manchester United, Leicester, Chelsea. There's just simply no returns from them.
Horrible. Yeah.
People are going to cut that out when he gets a hat-trick against Arsenal or Manchester United and say, Joe doesn't know what he's talking about. But nevertheless, Everton, not only is their form bad, but their fixtures are terrible. It's like, I can't believe what I'm witnessing here. Anyway, Tottenham, City, Liverpool, and they got Brentford as well. And West Ham, not so good. Manchester United and Man City, not great fixtures. And then Liverpool, are they fixture proof though? Does that bother you with Liverpool? I'm particularly thinking Salah captaincy. You're just going to captain him no matter what.
Yeah, well, I mean, so to use the United fixture, so I actually didn't have Lukaku. That was kind of my sort of big move when I wildcarded, was to swerve Lukaku. And I planned to, I went Vardy early, and I planned to captain Salah in that week because, I mean, we saw what he did against City. And I think in that week I captained Ronaldo and got 1 point. He was benched. Or maybe, yeah, I think it was the same week. Um, so I just think at the moment, Salah is just pretty fixture proof. It's maybe not the most exciting captaincy decision, but he's so reliable at the moment. And I think Liverpool are so reliable at the moment, certainly from an attacking perspective. I think you can trust them in pretty much any match at the moment.
Oh, Nicholas in the live chat. Joe's still having a monologue in these streams. Don't be so negative, Nicholas. Enjoy it. We're talking about the Unicane here. We're in FPL Dreamland. Try and be more positive, mate. So yeah, let's move on to our differentials.
Right.
Now, a few weeks ago, this is not a monologue, Nicholas, by the way. A few weeks ago, I said to Andy, don't pick Mane. No one's going to pick him because of Salah. So yeah, who's your differential then, Kylie?
Yeah, so after a very rigorous approvals process, which was highly questioned by Andy, but I did get sign off to choose Mane as my differential. It feels like a cheat code somehow. Yeah. I feel like that shouldn't be allowed, but I'll take it anyway. He's 3.8% owned, and that's obviously because even though he's been really consistently performing, he's just at that awkward, they've probably got Salah and Trent. It's a lot of investment in Liverpool attack, but you just look at Liverpool and they are smashing it across all attacking metrics at the moment. You name it, they're delivering it. And I mean, if you look at the 10 games so far this season, they've scored 29 goals and 23 of them have been assisted. The next best is Chelsea with 26 goals, 16 assisted. And Liverpool have, I think it's 41 big chances total. The next best is City with 28.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at that, you look at the goals and the number of assists, and you think that's a lot of points potential for one team. And even though Salah, he's a points hogger and we love him for that, it still leaves a lot left over that could be cleaned up by Mane. And, as for people who might bring him into their team, he's a harder buy than Jota because of price. So I think you get to keep him as a differential for much longer. So I think he's a good pick.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think the problem with him before was we weren't so set on Salah every week. And now we are. We're starting to think, how can we get these points? And Mane is performing really well. And Liverpool, with those stats there, they are the top attacking side. Yeah. This is almost my annual reference to the Suarez-Sturridge partnership, because I've mentioned it every year, is the dream double up. And that's what I did. I think that was one of my best years in this, because he also was about 60 to 70% owned. Everyone captained him, Suarez that is. The only way you could get the points, were to get the other guy who was assisting him, which was Sturridge. And that's sort of what's happening with. I mean, other people are assisting and scoring, but Mane is getting those goals as well. Now I've got Jota, and my only problem with Jota, a bit like with Firmino, is that they're it's sort of Salah, Mane, then Firmino, Jota, and I like them, but will they start? But with Mane and Salah, they pretty much will most games.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good choice. Andy picked the wrong time to say Mane a few weeks back, I think. And I think it's a very serious consideration for people, particularly those that don't want to invest heavily up front. So yeah, my differential is Trossard. So I think it was Tony on Twitter and in the live chat earlier. I think he might have even got Trossard in after I was saying Trossard is a good pick. The reason I picked him, he's false 9 in a Brighton side, which I'm heavily biased about, but they do have very strong fixtures, as we can see here, with Newcastle, who I believe he hauled against last season. and Villa, Leeds, and then West Ham. So he scored against Liverpool. He's had 14 shots over his last 4, 9 of these in the box and 5 on target. That is impressive. These are the sort of stats that would make me get Harry Kane in, let alone a 6.4 midfielder in a team where he's playing up front with great fixtures. So yeah, in terms of he was on my goals imminent table last week. He's still on there because he's just scored that one over that time. So he's an underperformer just. As I said, 14 goal attempts. This is really good stuff. He is another player I'm tempted by. I've got Sarr. I need a replacement. I think I'm going to do well out of Trossard if I got him in. I think Tony, who is in the live chat earlier, who I think has got Trossard in, could do very well from it. Don't blame me if it doesn't go right. But I do think we have to temper our expectations a bit. But we also have to accept when some players are getting better. And I think Trossard is simply getting better as a player and an FPL asset.
I have a quite torturous history with Trossard, actually. So many who know me on Twitter will be laughing at this because it's kind of that recurring theme that comes up every year. I have this amazing ability to own him. I've tried really hard to be a Trossard fan, but he just does the wrong thing by me every time I own him, and then I sell him and other people bring him in and then he scores. And, you try not to be biased against past experiences, but it doesn't work. I know. But you probably will do really well.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm tempted. I think he's a really good differential. And what was his ownership again? I think I've wrote it down. Yeah. I can't remember now. It's less than 2%.
Low.
It was low. Less than 2%. He's really low. You're going to get all of his points. So fingers crossed there. Let's move on to the community team here. This is a team that we're managing this season by a top 100 manager, Alex, who is taking a break from FPL. So we're managing the team for him. And I'm enjoying it. I'm perhaps enjoying it more than my own team. It's not doing as well as my own team, but it's doing better recently. It's the form team at the moment. So what I've got up here is the team that we're going into Gameweek 11 with. Last week we did pretty well. We got 57 points, 3rd green arrow in a row post wildcard. So we wildcarded and we're up to 426k after being around the 800k mark in Gameweek 7. So it's been a really nice turnaround there. There's 1.2 in the bank. My colleagues did nothing last week. Every time they do nothing, this team does quite well. So that's great. So we've got 2 free transfers. Already a bit of a benching headache. So I've got Christensen and Livramento on the bench because I got in Zaha and Saka and players like that as a sort of differentials, and Vardy, who at that time was edging towards being a differential. Looking at this team with Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo, Rudiger, Ramsdale, Salah captain, Zaha, Rafinha, Saka, Vardy is a vice-captain against Leeds. Could be some returns there. Tony and Antonio, and Christensen and Livramento. There's not much more I want to do with that, but I guess long-term looking at Spurs, and I don't particularly like wasting a transfer, so I could just get a backup goalie, I guess. I don't know. What would you do with this?
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky, and it is one of those weeks as well where you're kind of looking at the teams and you're like, there's actually could be some bench points again because there's quite a few teams that are doing well. And I mean, Douglas Luiz is yellow flagged. I think that might only be an illness, so you wouldn't really want to use a transfer on that as well. How much is in the bank?
1.2. So we've got a bit of scope.
1.2.
Could just upgrade Rudiger to Chilwell or something, but even though I was going against that, but I mean, this is a classic occasion where you can do
there is nothing wrong. And
you can do a luxury move.
And like rotating keepers is a headache.
Yeah,
I personally find Exhibit A this week. So it is a luxury move kind of week for the team, and I would do Chilwell for Rudiger because you've got Christensen and Livramento there. If he doesn't play, it's fine.
Yeah, definitely. There's a good. It's annoyingly too good. This. I mean, I'm really envious of this team. I wish I'd made it for myself, but I made it for help make it for someone else. But
Maybe it's a bit more freeing when it's not yours.
it could be. It could be. I've been freed up. But yeah, I'll be looking. Well, I'll discuss with Andy and Seb down the line. But I think I think long term we have to consider Spurs. We have to consider some kind of Son or Kane or Reguilon or something like that. Okay. Let's move on to our plans for the coming week. Those if you're just joining us now towards the end of the show, wondering why Kylie is in place of Andy, because Andy had to dip out for family reasons, and the way it's structured on the video conferencing is that he's there. So I can keep moving Kylie around, but I've given up doing that now. So
I'm just Andy now.
Yeah. So we'll just move it around here. So let's put your team up there. So did you want to go for your team and any sort of decisions lingering with this?
Yeah, okay. So I don't feel that I've got major issues. As I sort of said earlier in the show, the move I'm tempted to make is Azpilicueta out. I definitely won't be benching Ramsdale this time round. Captain is going to be staying the same. Havertz is kind of getting his last shot, so it's probably going to stay as it is, right? So I've got Ramsdale, Cancelo, Alexander-Arnold, Azpilicueta, who very possibly is going to go for Chilwell, then Mbeumo, Salah, Foden, Havertz, Hwang, Antonio, and Vardy. I do have Livramento and Duffy on the bench, who are capable of getting returns as well. Yeah. So I do feel like because I have Livramento there, I can take that risk on Chilwell this week.
Yeah.
You know, it's I'm used to not having Chelsea points anyway the last couple of weeks. So I might as well go with that. And Chilwell has a higher ceiling than Azpilicueta, particularly now that James is back and Azpilicueta's not going to be playing in that role. So yeah, that's pretty much me this week. Not over managing.
No, I think so, and I mean that's why I've started. I had a few red arrow. I've got a red arrow this week, but only a small one. And overall, I've sort of gone back on track slightly. And one of the reasons is exactly that: not over managing. Captain Salah. I'd already decided to do that when Lukaku was fit, just because it just saves a lot of heartache and not making too many transfers. Just sort of doing the obvious, correcting weak links. Of which, say, for example, Sarr is for me. But when I look at this, the only thing I would possibly wonder, would you play Livramento over Hwang, perhaps?
Hwang, possibly. So the strikers are the ones that I'm not totally sort of enamoured by. I mean, the thing is, Hwang, he did score last night. Obviously, it was clearly offside. But he still has the potential there. The only thing, as you said, is in terms of consistent form, Livramento certainly has that. Yeah. So I wouldn't be willing to bench Antonio. And it's kind of partially an ownership thing, but also the fact that I think he can sort of score against any opposition. But Hwang might be someone who I look to. The thing is, I love playing attacking players. To my detriment, often they don't actually deliver anything. And I think the people who've been doing really well are the ones that tend to be playing four at the back at the moment. So it's probably a good idea whether I do it or not.
I think a lot of people, whether they want to play four at the back, have done just because their Chelsea defender hasn't turned up. So Livramento's come in. I think you're right. I think if you can just save the transfer and you can go into the international break with two free transfers here, or as you were saying, the Azpilicueta move, because you can make a luxury move because it's not there's no sort of weak links really there.
Yeah, it was the hard week was this one just gone with the injuries, but now they're all seemingly back fit. So I think that I'm fairly well set up. And again, there's a case to be made for not making a move for Chilwell, given that I have a decent bench there because of the international break. And we know how challenging that can be with injuries, some real, some not, and, people traveling and so on. So if people can hold, it's not a bad thing to do.
definitely. So here's me. I'll try and move you around a bit here while I'm talking. So my team here is I've got Fernandes in goal that no one owns. But there are a few with the Brentford defence somewhere in their team. So I do think against Norwich you're going to get a return there. If not, I'm going to have to seriously rethink that. And I'm looking at someone like Guita, or I guess Ramsdale or Sanchez. But I'm not looking to spend more there. So I'm going in with a 4-3-3. And this is the week where on paper my fixtures aren't great, but I do like a lot of my players. So, fixtures. I've got Fernandes, Alexander-Arnold, Christensen, Cancelo and Livramento. I've been starting to play Livramento most weeks here because some people are saying if he's not coming off the bench, it's annoying. But I just think he's great, and I don't think Villa are much. Watkins could score, but Livramento does have attacking threat as well. Salah captain. I've got Jota. I've got Rafinha. I've got Kane as my vice captain, Antonio and Armstrong. And on my bench currently I have Sarr, Cody and Sissoko. So I have a bench. It's not a great bench.
It's a Watford bench.
But I'm looking, in order to get Son, I think I would need a hit over 2 weeks. So I'm not averse to doing a hit this week. I think I would prefer to take that hit after the international break though. So I'd possibly be looking this week to just free up some money. I've got 1.3 in the bank. Jota will probably become my cash cow for Son, and so I need a bit more somewhere. So Sarr to one of those cheaper midfielders, Mbomo, Smith Rowe, Gallagher, I think is the sensible play there. And then I would bench one of the Southampton players maybe, or see, it's a tough one. I mean, maybe Jota. It's all going to depend on team news, injuries. If Broha's back, Armstrong's out for me, and he may become Tony. If Broha's not back, Armstrong is against a really bad defence at the moment, so I'm very happy to have him and play him. Jota, if he plays in the Champions League midweek, then I'm more reluctant to keep him, so he may move on, or I may put him on the bench. See what I mean? There's lots going on here. There's a lot of players that I could move, and it's all going to depend on the team news. So I will be listening in to Az's chat with Neil towards the end of the week in the team news video, with a very keen ear on the likes of the Southampton and Brentford situation. Mbomo, will he be back? And also Jota, will he get minutes? Christensen played tonight, so immediately I think I need to improve Sarr, and so I might end up bringing that player in anyway. But anyway, lots to think about this week. I'm not averse to,
and lots of depending what the news is, there are a few different ways you could do things in your team this week, which is good. So you're not sort of stuck with one pathway.
The thing about it's funny. I don't know where you play fancy Premier League, but I kind of like it when I feel like the team's comfortable, that it's kind of flexible, where I don't really think about a particular player and think, how will I get them in? So already I think a more expensive midfielder like Son is a gap in my team, but I can do it in a hit, so it's not too bad. But everyone else I can sort of get in or get to, and I kind of like it that. Whether that translates into actual points,
it's debatable, but I tend to agree. If you can get somewhere with a 4-point hit at a maximum, that's tends to be how I like to have my team set up.
And I feel more relaxed with my FPL team knowing that it's set up like that. Before we go, I just want to remind people about the members area. There's tons of Opta data there, like the comparison tool, Rate My Team, and much more. And of course, all the tables that you can create the custom table. So for example, the goals imminent table and various others. So what I'll do before the end of the week, I'll put that up on my Twitter feed because I didn't have time to put it up to date. Thanks so much for joining me, Kylie, and sort of thanks in absence to Andy, who's doing far more important things with his family. But we usually say, and it's goodbye from me and all that, sort of a bit like the two Ronnies at the end. But I'll just say, Kylie, thanks so much for joining me. Thank you.
And thanks so much for having me on. It's been great fun.
And thanks everyone for watching. Goodbye.